Hey guys, my name is Michael. You are watching IDB, and in this video, I'm showing you iOS 26. This is a very large update in terms of iPhone design, and there is a lot I want to show you in this video. I don't really know where to get started, so let's just go ahead and start with the most obvious thing, the app icons. You can see Apple has designed all of the icons on the iPhone. Some of them are more obvious and some of them are a little bit subtle. One that sticks out to me in particular is the new camera icon. You can see it is the same color scheme, so it's going to be instantly recognizable, but you can see it now looks like the old camera icon that we had way back on the original iPhone and all the way up to iOS 6. So gone is that old camera outline icon. Some of the icons are pretty much the same. I'll point out the calculator icon. You can see the style is a little bit different, but this one is pretty much the same. And you're going to notice that throughout all of the icons. Some of them are completely different and some of them have just been updated a little bit. What you're going to notice with the app icons and the entire UI is Apple has switched over to what they call a liquid glass design system. So pretty much everything you're going to notice on the iOS 26 update is it's all going to look like glass. You can see here on the lock screen toggles, you can see they look like little panes of glass sitting on your lock screen. And something else I noticed is even though iOS 26 beta literally just came out like an hour ago, third-party icons actually look different when you're on iOS 26. So I'll point out this YouTube Studio app and Google Maps. As you can see, it looks like there is kind of a filter or something over top of the app, and it kind of gives all of your apps one unified look, and it kind of gives it that glassy effect. So I'll just go over to my app library to show you some of the other icons. You can see Safari is a little bit different. Find My has been updated slightly. The Mail app has a pretty new logo. If I scroll a little bit more, you can see the Health app looks a little bit more glassy. Most of the icons are pretty much the same. I'd say 85% of them, but a few of them have been altered quite a bit. I do think my favorite one is the new Photos app. I think it looks really fun and playful. And yeah, I think the icons look very nice and it was time for a refresh. One thing I really like about iOS 26 is the way it responds to the way you move your phone. So if I go into the lock screen, it's kind of hard to see, it's very subtle, but as I move my iPhone around, the effect on the clock is actually changing and it's making it look like it's refracting light a little bit differently. So it's using the sensors in the iPhone to refract light as you move it around, and it really gives it a nice effect. And it may not show up on video very well, but I also did notice there is a slightly new animation when you unlock. The icons are a little bit more bouncy when you swipe up. I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I especially noticed it on the icons at the top. When you flick up, they kind of have a little bit more spring to them. And I'm also noticing in iOS 26 that there are a lot nicer animations. And one that stuck out was in Photos. So if I go ahead and open up Photos, and you can see I have this select button here. When I click on it, you can see the animation is very fluid and it feels like it's reacting to my touch. Now, this is the very first beta of iOS 26, so not all of these animations are going to be completely flushed out, but just using it here in the first hour, it definitely feels really smooth already. Another thing I noticed in iOS 26 in just my first little bit of using it is transparency and layering. So because all of the UI is made out of a glass element now, you're going to notice all of your UI elements are going to be visible underneath whatever you're doing. And I notice it particularly in Control Center. So here, if I go to Control Center, you can see it's kind of transparent, and I don't know how to feel about this, especially if you look here where I have my YouTube app. Because I have this bright red YouTube app here on my home screen, inside of Control Center, you can see it underneath my flashlight toggle, and it doesn't really make it that clear. So I think Apple is definitely going to be flushing this out as they move throughout the betas, especially with accessibility for people that can't really see their iPhones very well. I don't really think this looks very good in terms of the contrast with Control Center over your home screen. But again, this is a first beta, so Apple's definitely going to be flushing out some of these issues. And another thing I'll show you in terms of the layering is for music. So you can see here down on your Now Playing tab in Music, as you are scrolling, you're going to see the elements underneath your Now Playing bar. And you can see I have some dark albums and some light albums. And as that content goes underneath that Now Playing bar, it looks a little bit distracting in my opinion. So I don't know how Apple is going to fix this. If this is the design that they are sticking with, they might make small changes, but I guess this is now the set in stone look of iOS with a lot of transparency. Another thing in terms of the animations is I'm noticing it feels a lot more smooth and playful, if you will. So if I go into notes and I click on this button here on the top, a lot of these boxes are a little bit playful and bouncy. As you can see, as I move them around, it's kind of reacting to my finger. So it's kind of a nice attention to detail thing, and it just makes it feel a little bit more lively. And then staying inside of notes, another thing I want to mention is that tab bars are now completely gone, and anything that's at the bottom of the screen is now going to be floating, as you can see here. So before iOS 26 with iOS 18, sounds weird to say, it was stuck to the bottom. And Apple mentioned in their announcement of iOS 26 that all of those tab bars stuck to the bottom were sort of built for iPhones that had a rectangular display. So think the iPhone 8 and before. But now that we have all of these big iPhones with rounded screens, it doesn't really make sense to have those tab bars attached to the bottom of your screen. So now Apple is moving to more of this floating view, and you can see it more in music as I showed before as well. One thing that is nice about the elimination of the tab bar is these little options at the bottom can now change based on what you're doing. So if you're scrolling, they're going to become a lot smaller. So here in Safari, you can see it pretty much disappears and only shows the website I'm on. But as I scroll up, I can see more information. And with this redesign, Apple did obviously redesign the keyboard as well. So I'll go ahead and open up Safari, and you can see this is what the new keyboard looks like in iOS 26. It isn't that much of a change, but it definitely does look like it has been updated. I also noticed a little bit more transparency here at the top, and you can also see the page that the keyboard is sitting on also has a rounded corner on the tops. Another thing that's new in iOS 26 is the clock on the lock screen. You can see it's very large. I did that myself. It's not by default like this. But if you go ahead and press and hold, then click on Customize, you can see we now have a dragger here right below the clock. You can make it large, you can make it medium, and you can also make it small. I think I like the look of the medium size, so I'm going to drag it down and I'll stick it like that. And there's also an all-new feature for the lock screen on iOS 26, which is spatial photos. So if you have a photo that was taken in portrait mode, or if you have one of the newer iPhones that can generate depth data without even being in portrait mode, you can use this feature. So press and hold on your lock screen, then click on Customize. You're then going to see a new button right here. And if you press it, what it's going to do is it's going to generate the spatial scene using the depth information from that photo. And now you can see as I move my iPhone around, it looks like my cat is sitting in 3D on top of my iPhone. This is really, really cool, and it brings me back to when Apple did this with iOS 7. So it just brings some more life to your iPhone, and it makes it kind of fun. Another cool thing that Apple did is they have added full screen music playback to the lock screen. So you can see here I'm playing music. If I swipe down, this is the default view. But if you click on the album art, you can see it's now going to go into full screen. And you can see this is actually an animated album, and it looks really cool, especially when it's in full screen on your iPhone. Apple has also completely redesigned two major applications in iOS 26, and the first one is the camera. So if I go ahead and open up the camera, you can see it now looks completely different, and I think the UI change is much needed. The camera app has pretty much been the same since the very first iPhone. As Apple kept adding more and more features, it was getting so confusing. But now in iOS 26, you can see we simply have a photo and video. And if you want to swipe to see more options, you can see they actually kind of preview themselves as you tap between modes. So here I can simply swipe and I can go to panorama, spatial, portrait, and then back to photo. And if you want to see even more, you can simply do a swipe up just like this, and it's going to reveal all of your options. I definitely think this is a much better way to make changes to your camera app, especially with how many features Apple has been adding lately. And then also you're going to notice at the top, you can now change your format. So you could do this for videos sort of before, but now you can do it for photos. So here, if I click on it, you can see I can change all of the formats available to me for photos. And then in videos, I can now click here and I can choose my exact resolution and frame rate right from the camera app. And the second app that has a giant overhaul is the Photos app. So Apple has finally fixed the horrible Photos app design from iOS 18. If I open it up here, you can see it is very, very simple. We now have two buttons. We have Library and Collections. Before in iOS 18, you were in the library by default, sometimes you would think. But then to get to your collections, you would have to scroll and sometimes do a double scroll. It was a mess. But now in iOS 26, Apple has completely fixed it. If you want to see all of your photos, it is now here in the library view. Then if you want to see all of your collections, it is one tap away and you can see all of your albums and collections. And another thing that I love that Apple has fixed in iOS 26 is the search button inside of Photos. In iOS 18, the search button was at the top right and it was tiny. And when I'm using my iPhone with one hand, it's very hard to hit that very small touch target, especially when the button is so small. But here in iOS 26, you can see the search button is a lot bigger, and now it is within reach of my thumb. And Apple has also completely redesigned the FaceTime app. This is an app I definitely think needed a redesign, because before, when you opened up the FaceTime app, you didn't really see anything except a boring list of all of your previous calls. And that has now been fixed in iOS 26. So here inside of FaceTime, if I open it up, you can see the first thing you see is a list of all of your recent calls. And what's really cool is if someone left you a video message, those are now going to autoplay in their card. So Apple introduced video messages not too long ago, and it's kind of cool now that if they leave you sort of a video voicemail from a missed FaceTime, as soon as you open up the application, you're going to see that playing in their card. And then down here at the bottom, you can see we have a button to start a new FaceTime call. And when Apple was announcing iOS 26, they said that they were going to redesign the phone app. However, I'm not seeing the design that they were showing in the keynote, so maybe that's coming in a future beta. But the phone app has been a little bit redesigned on my version of the beta. You can see here it looks a little bit differently. You have a recent calls button, you have your contacts, and you have your keypad. You also have a button to search for recent calls and contacts as well. I want to point out the animations because this is where I especially notice it. You can see as I switch between the different buttons, you can really see that animation and that glass effect in iOS 26, and I think it looks really, really nice. Apple is also bringing call screening to the iPhone in iOS 26, which is really cool. So if you get a call from someone who is not in your contacts, that call is automatically going to be screened. Now you can turn off this feature because some people may not like it, but essentially AI in like a Siri voice is going to answer the call for you. And then as soon as the person on the other line gives you their name, it's then going to ring you. And it's never going to ring your phone until the call has been screened. So this is a pretty cool feature. It's been on the Google Pixel phones for quite a while, and it's nice that Apple is now bringing it to iOS 26. And the final feature in the phone app I'm really excited to tell you about is on-hold assist. So if you've ever had that really annoying hold music and you're just sitting on the line for like an hour, that is no longer, because in iOS 26, you never have to wait on hold ever again. Your iPhone is going to detect when you are on hold, and then as soon as you're put on hold, you're going to see a button pop up in the dialer. When you click on that, your iPhone is going to sit on hold for you, and you don't have to listen to any of that music. And then using artificial intelligence, the iPhone is going to know when an agent comes on the line, and then as soon as it hears a voice, it'll give you an alert, and you can go to that call without waiting a minute on hold. All right, switching apps now. Let's talk about Messages. Apple has added a few really cool things inside of Messages, and the first one is backgrounds. So here, if I go ahead and open up Messages, I'm just in a conversation with myself. If I click up here, you can see I now have backgrounds. So I can just go ahead and choose this one. I'll click on the OK button, and this is now the background for this conversation. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be using this because I think it looks a little bit messy, especially when you're going to have all of these bubbles on your screen. But a lot of people use WhatsApp, and WhatsApp is known for having a lot of backgrounds available for their messages. So if you want to have a background for your iMessages, you can now do that in iOS 26. There's also some new features in iOS 26 for group chats as well. So when you're in a group chat, you can now have a poll. If you click on this plus button, you can see there's a new button for polls. You can click on this, you can give as many choices as you want, and people in the group chat can vote on it. So this is a really awesome way of deciding something in a large group. And then what's also cool is in group chats with iOS 26, you are now going to have typing indicators. This is really, really cool, and I've been waiting for this for a very long time. I don't know why it took so long for Apple to implement it, but when you're messaging someone one-on-one, you always get that little typing bubble indicator, but you never got it in the group chat. So now you can see who in the group chat is typing, so you know you can expect a response. And then also new in Messages is any spam texts or any texts that come from a person that is not in your contacts is automatically going to be routed into a spam folder, and you're not going to get notified. So here, if I click on this button on the top right, you can see we have a new spam button. And if you get any text from an unrecognized number, that's where they're going to live now. So because this is just a brief hands-on first look, I'll only show you one more feature, and that is visual intelligence now works on your iPhone's display, not just with the camera. So here, if I go to Safari, let's just go to a website, I don't know, like NHL, and then I'll get rid of this. If I take a screenshot of something, you'll see it now goes into this new view instead of going into a small mode at the bottom. But here you can see I now have AI and visual intelligence. So here I can ask ChatGPT what it thinks is on my screen. I can copy the link, and I can also do an image search. So this is going to be really cool. Say, for example, you're browsing Facebook and you see a really cool pair of shoes that you want. All you have to do is simply take a screenshot, and then you'll be able to either circle it, or you can use AI at the bottom to look them up. Then also you can see in this example I gave, because some information on the screen had a date, you can see you can automatically add stuff to your calendar just by taking a screenshot. So if I click it like this, it's going to add whatever was on the screen to my calendar. So there you have it. That is your first hands-on look at iOS 26. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the redesign, so let me know in the comments down below. And definitely make sure you hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, as you won't want to miss all of the future videos we have coming up on iOS 26. If you guys enjoyed this video, please drop a like. My name is Michael with IDB. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.